No, what I
Very-
know now, you will get a call.
Yeah.
All right, we can
Microphones are
stand for the
working today.
pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everybody. We'll ask for a public comment period. Looks like no one from the public, so we'll move on to the board agenda.
Mr. Chair, we had one addition to the agenda. It was an appointment to the hospital board. My suggestion would be to put it under consent.
All right, thank you, Andrew.
Mr. Chair, I'll move the agenda with the amendment.
Motion made by Schmidt, looking for a
Chair, I
second.
will second that.
Second by Johnson. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Consent agenda.
Yes, we have approval of the August 6th board meeting minutes, approval of the Health and Human Services County and Hospital Accounts Payable, and approval of an appointment of Michelle Beckela to the hospital board. That is a consent agenda.
All right, thank you, Andrew.
Mr. Chair, make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion made by Johnson,
I'll second that.
second by Bredesen. Any questions or further discussion?
I just want to tell you a little bit about Michelle. She comes from Dassel, and she's a financial advisor for Thrivent. Very capable young lady. She used to work, I believe, at Mid-Country,
Home State.
Sorry, John Sprader recommended her. I should have known it was Home State, so. I think she's going to be, she was unanimously voted on yesterday by the hospital board, and I think she'll be a very good asset, so.
So will it be just the rest of the year and then we have to reappoint
No,
someone?
this is
Okay,
a replacing Bill Ward, and then
But his term expires at the end of
expires,
this
yeah,
year.
and then she'll be
then-
reappointed.
Then
Okay.
there would be a reappointment after.
okay,
Yeah,
That's-
is that what you mean?
Yep.
Yes,
Mhm.
that's what, the way it is, so.
super. So, all right. Well, there's a motion on the table for the agenda, consent agenda. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. Joel?
Good
Morning.
morning.
Joel?
I'm here this morning to present the, we have elevator modifications we have to do. It's considered, state mandated now, but, after 5 years ago, they kind of evaded. That we had to start getting this on our, bucket list to do. We've now, we've since done that, we got some quotes. We did, Minnesota elevator and All City elevator. And then the general construction was between Hamlin Construction and Total Construction. The first one we're gonna have to do is the courthouse, and the courthouse one, I'm looking at, we're probably we'll accept Minnesota Elevators, bid their quote at $91,755.6, and, our Hamlin Construction, I know it's part of $27,785.
Okay.
Not to jump ahead, but I noticed that the quotes on the second one got much closer together
Yes.
than on this one, so the projects must be significantly different.
Yeah, and actually, it's kind of weird because I did check that out, and, I put the back quotes and actually compared apples to apples with, hey, this is what they're doing, this is what we're doing. And the other one, they changed their price on, but not on this one, so, they did drop, actually, this one, they did drop down some, but it's still not to what Minnesota elevator has.
So, why did I think this was included in our remodel?
I don't know. It has not included. Sorry,
That
but
was,
it-
that was
I asked-
refreshingly honest.
Julie
I
asked the same
asked-
question. The
I asked the
elevator
same
modernization, we talked about it last year as part of the budget process, and we had talked about it the year previously as part of the capital improvement plan. And, this, there's a number of other things that are not included in the remodel project that we
So I
will see
must have
over
been
the
just,
I think I
Why are you
answered.
laughing?
I remember we talked about it because we talked
Budget.
about moving the stairway at the old
Well,
courthouse and
we did.
redoing that elevator. And when these
okay.
came forward, I asked Andrew, is this part of the financing for the remodel, and neither of them are. So this is gonna be a
So this is the
big chunk.
courthouse.
Yes, the thing I will note out is, we did budget it for, like, just for the courthouse one was 95,000. Actually, the general construction was a lot, that wasn't including in that.
Okay.
So that's kind of where that number, I mean.
Maybe
we're
my
pretty
confusion.
close on the original quote, which is that the general construction, which that, I didn't realize that we have to, that is including like air handling for the machine rooms, which that kind of drove that cost, I think, up higher than I was anticipating.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we did, in the courthouse, redid the controls 4 years
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
Well, we have,
With-
this one include the power unit that we put in the courthouse, that one will not be replaced. The power unit here, will, that's the next one we'll be showing, that one has a power head, new unit and everything, new pump and the whole works.
Because when we did that, what I was getting at, when we did that power head or the supply and stuff at the courthouse, we knew that the car itself, and that's this portion,
Yeah.
was coming down the road, and I think we've had that $90,000 or $100,000 roughly in our head for a couple of years.
It's been in the CIP for a few years.
Yeah, that's what I thought, so.
So is it getting more difficult to find people to work on elevators, are they?
Yeah, there's kind of a specialty thing, it's like they're pretty tight regulated on who can work on them and what. I mean, you have to have an elevator service company do them.
I had the joy of riding this one this morning. My knee's been bothering me, and it's quite a ride. It's about a 10-minute wait.
I better not use that one then, huh?
Don't use that one. You don't have the patience for that one, Commissioner.
I don't have the time to.
It wasn't 10 minutes, but it was a
Okay. I see on here that our elevators were flagged 5 years ago. I mean, how often, are they inspected every
Well, they
year?
they just started, it's actually, I don't know how long ago it was, they did it, they kind of took away all the grandfathering in that we had on elevators. And they kind of opened it all up, so now you have to have it inspected. We actually have a service with, we do a monthly service on them, so they have a monthly service contract for maintenance and all that stuff on elevators. We have that, we are in agreement with that, and then that is mandatory, we do that monthly, and, yeah, so a lot of that stuff is kind of laid up in a kind of regulated fashion.
Andrew, you explained to me yesterday about how we have kind of prepared financially for this. So we have some funds available for it, and that was a concern. Very good.
Mr.
Thank
Chair, I
you.
move to approve a proposal from MEI Total Elevator Solutions in the amount of $91,755.68 and Hamlin Construction in the amount of $27,785.
Okay, motion made by Oberg,
I'll second that, Mr.
second by
Chair.
Bredesen. Any further discussions? Are any of these units the same companies that are doing the remodeling, or is it totally different then?
No, they're totally different.
Okay, and I did have that same question to Andrew when we went through this in the budget. So you're not
Now you tell me.
You're not-
You laughed at me.
you're not going senile or anything, so,
Here we go already. Seasoned.
I think,
yeah.
and the reason for that, I think they did look at that. The reason that was, I think the one for the construction, that's a specialty elevator, so there were some
Okay,
who can actually install that one, and the type of machine we needed for that.
okay. Thanks, Joe. Then been a motion made. All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next one.
And the next one would be the family services here, and that one, we came back and we had the same, that one's a little closer pricing. It's the same, deal. The only thing we have here that's different on this one is that they are putting a new power head in this unit compared to the other ones. And this one, all city elevator came in lower, so we'd like to accept the quote approval for all city elevator for $96,987, and the state Hamlin Construction for $26,707.
So how much more would it cost to get padding in the elevator so we don't have anybody get hurt knees on the way
He's
up?
pointing right at me. I can't.
Probably put that into action.
Be nice, Joe.
On this one, do we know, like all city and Minnesota elevator or whatever they're called? Are they using the same product pretty much? Are you aware of?
Yes. It sounds.
So I
like
mean,
it.
to build, what I'm
I
getting.
mean, really, it's hard to decipher out exactly, I mean, what the, cause I kinda went through that whole list of all the little different, products that they're using, but I don't know if they're using the, you know, I can't tell you that, you know, hey, if they're using.
No, the reason I'm asking for, just over, for $1,200, that we get some uniformity between the buildings too, not that,
Right.
if you had 6 elevators, 6 different companies with
And I'm
6
guessing
different
that volume
products,
is
but
good, which is, means that, you know, either one, if we wanna have the
Okay.
service done, we can still, MEI, if we were doing service with them right now, they could still service that.
that's
elevator
what I was,
after the-
that's where,
Yes.
so.
The company that's putting in the elevator now with our remodel, I'm assuming they were also offered an opportunity to give a bid on this.
I didn't put that out there on that, but, it's a they're more of a proprietary type, elevator service, I think, so they're kind of have a little different, that's a little different.
They're also, because of kind of the unique nature of that elevator, that fact that it had to be controlled from the jail control board rather than in the elevator itself, we had to go and do a further search to find a company who was able to do that. So they're actually based out of Iowa, whereas I believe both of these companies are based out of Minnesota.
Okay, because I thought, well, they're already here, you know.
Yeah, they're
but-
different, yeah, it's a different, that's a little different setup than what we would have in our normal.
Okay. I was curious. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, move to approve a proposal from All City Elevator Incorporated in the amount of $96,907 and Hamlin Construction in the amount of $26,707.
Motion made by Johnson,
I'll second that.
second by
As well.
Bredesen. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thanks, Joel.
Yep, thank you very much.
Thanks, Joe.
Meeker.
Good morning.
Good morning, Cal.
Nicole Johnson, Human Resources Coordinator. So today what I have for you is seeking approval of the prime health insurance rate for non-union employees for 2025. So we just received our increase information, and overall the average increase across all plans is 3.6%. And then in the slide here, it shows what the increase is for single plans specifically. So it shows what the rate would have been this year and then what it would be for next year. And then it shows the county contribution as well. So you'll see the county contribution increasing from $886.23 to $907.16 for 2025. So then on the family plans the rates are based off of the age of the spouse as of January 1st, and or the number of children that are on the plan. So there's separate rates for each of those things. So it's hard to give a for sure across the board what a rate would look like. So what we do is we just pick out an example of what an average employee's situation might look like. So this example is with a 43-year-old spouse and 2 children. So the slide there shows the difference there. Overall, the family HSA plan saw an increase of 3.5% to that base employee rate. The non-HSA plan, family plan, saw an increase of 3%. And so while there's still increases, these are still relatively low increases that we've been seeing with Prime Health, so those are a positive thing. I know that it makes rates go up, but that's still a lot lower than some of the other, insurances that are going on right now, so. The actual rates for the spouse and the children also increased very slightly by age and then by the number of children as well, but it was about a couple dollars per level per age, so there wasn't a significant increase there, but those did increase as well. Overall, the deductibles themselves for the plans are not changing, so those are remaining the same. And then we'd also be looking at increasing the county contribution to the HSAs themselves as well. So, right now, the county contributes $1,600 to single plans and $3,800 to family plans. And so we'd be looking at increasing that to $1,650 for, single plans and $3,900 for family plans. And part of that is because the county has historically done more into the HSA than other counties. So especially on the family plan, the county has generally done $50 per month extra than what other counties in the Prime Health Pool have done. So it would be to stick with that trend that we've been doing historically.
So that was gonna be my question. The HSA is just determined by us, whatever, I'm a little bit confused
So
about.
the single plan, we are going with what the Prime Health, the whole pool is doing, and then the family plan, we've just historically made that decision to do more.
So we increase it as the rates go up, is that? That's where I'm just.
Yeah, as the Prime Health Pool has increased their HSA contribution, we have traditionally increased ours as well.
And
To
then we do it
maintain that
more.
$50 a month more, than the others in the pool. We don't have to, that's our choice.
Okay.
But that is traditionally what this board has.
Sure.
Is this kind of part of our negotiations with folks, or this is just because of increases in the cost of health insurance?
So this is just for non-union, so we are currently in negotiations. We actually are meeting with our first group today that has Prime Health. So we will be negotiating that as well. So this is just for non-union at this time, but this is because we received the increases. It's also helpful because open enrollment will be coming up in October, so it's good to get some of these rates solidified so that we're able to show employees those rates and have them make those decisions when they're signing up.
And ultimately, from a strategy standpoint, it's helpful for us to have established this for the non-union folks. We can demonstrate an internal, comparability. Yeah, that's the word I'm saying.
Okay, thank you.
The other,
Go ahead, Steve.
just, and talking about negotiations and with Andrew and Danny and Mikkel the last few days here. When it comes to PEEP, we don't have those numbers yet, and we won't till late September usually, so,
Okay.
you know, we're negotiating with blanks in a few spots, so I mean, this helps to have concrete out front and
Okay.
less guesswork. In the
So
numbers.
what is our total of all our employees that carry our health insurance?
So I broke it down, I should have brought the total, so.
That's all right.
For the non-union, there are 18 on Emerald. For union, there's 23.
Okay,
Ruby, there's 6 non-union, and for union, there's 11. Sapphire, there is 7 non-union and 5 union. Diamond, there are 3 non-union and 7 union. Pearl, there are 2 non-union and 1 union. Family HSA, there's 25 non-union and 24 union. And family non-HSA, there are 0 non-union and 1 union.
and then we have, besides that, we have PEEP.
Yes.
That is included.
So in 2023, we sent out a report after the 2023 open enrollment period, and we had 93% of our health insurance eligible employees participating in health insurance. I imagine we're in the same ballpark. You know, maybe it's up 1% or down 1%, but that's 179 of, at that time, 192 eligible employees.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Andrew and Beth, you're on the Prime Health Board. I'm just
Mostly Andrew.
curious about, you know, you're required to keep so much in reserve. And like at Prime West, 800% when we're only required for 300. What is the
They have a
situation
very
with Prime
healthy
Health?
reserve right now, and I can't, do you remember the
Yeah,
amount?
the reserve is very healthy right now. They have continued to see, positive growth in there over the past few years. As we've talked about in the past, Prime Health had a really high case early on in its life, which caused a lot of risk, right? However, over the past couple of years, the pool has had really great performance as far as the medical loss ratio, so the amount of money that's being spent out versus the money that's coming in, which has allowed for,
5.3 million.
Yeah.
I think they had
Yeah.
5.3 million in June.
which has allowed for the pool to build on that owner's equity. And that's what I've been a little bit stalling for to try and pull up as I'm.
I just looked at my notes, it's 5.3
5.3
million
million. Thank
as
you.
of June.
Okay, I was just curious if it was getting built to a point where they would look at,
I think they're looking at,
Less
what they're looking
of an
at is
increase.
trying to get more people, obviously.
Yes.
And then also adding some benefits, maybe.
That's been the big discussion, right? Is
It's
how
always-
how do we use that equity? Is it best bang for the buck to have discussions about wellness programs? In the work that the staff at Prime Health, that they've done surveying, the HR directors from each of the member counties, they feel that, investing in a wellness program isn't going to produce really significant positive benefits for the plan. So they're looking at, as you mentioned, are there other benefits that can be provided or buying down rate increases?
I mean, that's what I was gonna ask. Do they
That's probably-
use their reserves to keep it at like a 3.6?
We have certainly seen that our increases are below medical inflation.
Okay,
I mean, I think it's below most, they're doing well, but they always remind you, and he goes, I don't go to all the meetings, but there's always the reminder of a few big cases, what it can do, right, Andrew?
Yes.
I mean,
but
that's,
do they use the reserves
I
as
think
an
they I
active
think that
thing
they,
to keep that base down, so to speak, like we do with our fund balance with levy?
I think that's what they've been doing, that's why I think we've been keeping
The-
it down.
Okay.
They have, because that, whether they're, using cash specifically to say we know our expense is gonna be this month, so we're gonna use cash to pay for a certain amount of it and have our medical loss ratio be above 100%. They're not doing that, but because there is a healthy balance, they're able to, the actuaries are able to have confidence that they don't need to increase as much to accommodate for those risks.
That's a
think they
prudent way
start-
to do it, I mean,
They just started off on a bad footing, I think, with some
Some bad luck.
big cases. And
Bad luck.
that's kind of straightened out now, so I think you guys made a good decision, you made a good decision by sticking with them. And they're getting more inquiries now from others who would like to, so.
But just the history on that case you were talking about, I think that was in the works when I came on. the
It was,
board.
Hausman
Or-
had started, yeah.
Yeah.
It was really the first year of the pool.
Yeah, it was,
Yeah.
Is when that occurred.
it sure was, so.
Are union and/or non-union employees required to participate in a health insurance program? Or do they have an option? Say if they have a spouse that can carry them, is there an option?
We do not require that people are on our health insurance, no.
Do we ever have any questions about reimbursement to people who do not take our insurance?
Yeah, I've had discussions with our health insurance broker about that. They caution that when you do that, you can shrink your pool, because if you are giving them a benefit for not being on it, then when people leave, when we have to go out for bids or anything like that, that we don't look as, what's the positive, we don't look as.
That's always been their caution, by the way, over the years, so I'm not, we had this discussion at Sporting Hands. We started to do it now, and it's paid off. People, it's fair, it's fairness, right?
One of the things that we have taken a really hard look at, based on some requests, is on folks who have the option for Medicare, and there's some really strict rules surrounding that, where we can't, per federal guidelines, we can't provide any sort of incentive for someone to leave our insurance to then go take
Right.
Medicare instead.
But I think that, I'm talking about this insurance.
I understand. I'm
And
just
supporting,
clarifying.
like, so with Supporting Hands, they give them, I don't know the dollar amount,
Mm-hmm.
but it has to go into a daycare or a health savings, dental, whatever. They have some specifications. It has helped, there's some happy employees over that. And in the interest, it's fair. And I actually was kind of against it for a while, but after I thought it out, I thought it isn't a bad deal. Of course, they're a smaller scale, it's not as many people, but it might be something to think about.
One more question. What is, normalcy as far as their reserve? Like, for the number of individuals that they cover, is 5.3,
You know, it's.
what's that
I don't-
equate to,
I
you
don't
know?
have that information.
I don't
Can't
either,
say.
but they did, there's a expectation
Yes.
that we have to have, so I can't tell you.
Right.
They haven't, I can't recall that they may have, I just don't remember off the top of my head, if they've given us, we need to have a specific number. I do know that what they've consistently told us is that we're in a healthy position. Our CPA, our Chief Financial Officer, who's a contract and service, they're telling us that, our actuaries are telling us that as well. So,
Yeah, and I'm sure it is. It's just like, I think for all the counties, there should be a nice balance where it's not too healthy, where you're just sitting on money that could go back to taxpayers, you know, savings that way.
Correct, and so the pool's board is made up of commissioners, administrators,
Right.
and their ultimate goal is to have rate stability.
Yep.
And so if that means that we're buying down years, that's exactly what we're going to do. So if we have too much cash on hand, that's what's gonna happen.
And when is our contract up?
So I believe we are going into our
This
third
our
year now.
third year in
Our
2025?
2025 would be our third year out of the 5.
Okay, and we did do 5 then again?
5 was the requirement, yep.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. Any other questions?
The only thing I would bring up is, I know Beth, you said you were glad we decided to stay with them, but I think, just my opinion, when we had that discussion that time, and from my view, wasn't necessarily to leave, but to also, if you can never leave,
Yeah, I know that,
gives
that's
less
been the
incentive.
discussion with every
You know,
county.
so it's good to
obviously.
have that.
Sure, absolutely.
it's just healthy for
An option.
individual counties
Yep.
and for the company itself.
But I hope it grows, like I said last time,
And they've been
Black
delivering.
Opal
They've
just
been
came on,
delivering.
they have been.
this.
And I do think
Promise.
rate stability is that's a big conversation, obviously, from every commissioner that's on that board, so.
Yep, my sentiments were the same with Steve. That's why we
Yeah, it was.
vetted that process
I
out,
agree.
and I think we made a good decision.
I agree.
So if we approve this motion, we are approving the rate increase of all 5 of those plans, or is it an average?
So you would be approving the, not the increase itself, but the county contribution, which then, of course, in turn makes the employee contribution what it is. And then you'd be approving for both single and family, and then you'd be approving the contribution to the HSA. So the 1,650 for single and the 3,900 for family.
Okay, so it isn't an actual percentage increase, because it just says move to approve the rates, and
Right, so
Okay.
those amounts are the amounts we get from Prime Health saying how much the actual like base amount is increasing, and then we as the county decide how are we handling that increase between what we contribute and what the employee contributes.
And our policy has been that whatever that dollar amount increase is, we split 50-50 between the county and the employee. So that dollar amount, percentage-wise, is larger on the employee than it is on the county, because the county's paying a higher percentage, or a higher portion of the rate to begin with.
And I think we've done that 50-50 for years.
We've done it for years.
Split, yeah.
That's what
And
I'm
when I
saying,
was
that's
on
been our,
that's been our
policy
for a long time
a long time.
And the good news is we've actually budgeted
for that.
estimation higher than what we just received too.
Good.
Slightly higher.
Just slightly.
Higher,
Right.
higher.
Higher is higher. So, any other questions?
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
I move to approve the Prime Health insurance rates for non-union employees for 2025.
Motion made by Bredesen,
I'll second, Mr. Chair.
second by Schmidt. Any further discussions? All those in favor, please say by aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Are we getting our positions
hear
filled,
your
Mikhail,
aye.
as long as I have you here?
Aye.
Okay,
So if you have a moment, just wanted to update on some of the different things that we're doing currently for recruiting. So, right now, what our open positions are, human services professional, but that was just posted recently. That was the one that you had approved. Was it the last board?
meeting.
Yeah. And then as well as the public health educator. So those are both two new positions that have been added. So we are advertising for those. Patrol sergeant and deputy, those have been out for a few months, and we're still working on those. And then we are still short 6 full-time corrections officers, so that is where we're having the most struggles with recruiting right now. And unfortunately, we just found out today that the engineer that we had hired was not able to make moving from out-of-state work, so we will be posting for that one as well. But some of the things that we've been doing, the sheriff's office, you might have seen at the county fair, had a booth set up. They were doing QR codes. They were trying to make it really easy to apply. They were highlighted, they had a booth set up with a board with all the different benefits, and they were talking to people about those things. In the past, we have done job fairs as well, so we've had where they can come right into the jail and see what that looks like, and then we make it really easy. We have applications right there for them. We've been advertising in the Enterprise and the Real newspapers. Karen's been working with some places to post maybe in different places than what we have. There's been a hot jobs ad that she's been working on creating a nice ad with them for. Some of the things that we are doing also is at our interviews, we're really trying to make sure that we're coming across as sharing our culture as welcoming and friendly and supportive and all of those things. Making sure that we're really taking the time to get to know that person, ask them questions to really find out about their skills and their backgrounds, as well as just letting them know what we would be doing for them. I think it's important that when someone comes for an interview, that it's not just that we're asking, well, what can you do for us, but what can we do for you? Highlighting our benefits at that time as well, including things that we just did, like the tuition reimbursement, the student loan assistance, the 3 days of vacation for new hires starting out. I was actually just contacted by a neighboring county that was like, we're really jealous of your 3-day, let us know how that works. And so I sent them the policy, and so they were like, we're admiring that, we wanna do that. So it's really great to hear from other counties like that they're really looking up to what we're doing. Additionally, the film that we did last year, we're working on breaking out those into smaller portions, so we have more specific by department, so that somebody doesn't have to listen to the whole film, they can just look at which one they're interested in. So we're working on that with that company again. And some of they actually said they could help us too with some different social media posts as well. And I know in the past the sheriff has been posting on social media as well about openings. So those are some of the things that we are trying to do right now. Still struggling in that corrections officer. It's just a hard position to fill, so we're still working on that.
So the referrals program, employee referrals haven't made a difference? So
We are still getting referrals for that.
are they
We
referring
just
people
hired
that,
someone.
oh, you did?
Yep.
So would you say we're improving on what we need, or is it about the same? I know corrections is just,
Corrections is hard.
the rest of it is better?
Yeah, the rest of it has been improving. Obviously, it really depends on the position. We actually just hired an assistant county attorney this last
Well,
week as
they
well.
won't last, cause, I'm kidding.
Can you clarify on that?
Look at that bullet.
That's kind of an interesting
Pull
line
her
of
up,
questions.
didn't I?
Maybe we should,
No, because that's, where's,
Here isn't even warm
where's
yet.
the assistant, where's the assistant from?
Has experience from the private firm in Moore.
Not so part of travel, so that's good. By the way, I was kidding.
We are very excited to have him.
Good, so am I. That's
Mr.
And
Chair.
this was an opening for how long?
13 months.
Well, didn't we have one in between that?
No, I've been down 2 at one point.
You've been down two.
I've been down 1 for 13 months.
We had someone, we hired someone, and then before that person started,
That's
the
what
other
happened.
person quit. So we had
So you're really
3-4
saving us
weeks.
money. Thank you.
So, Mikhail, a couple of questions. If we're down 6 correction officers, how many total should we have?
I'd have to ask Brian, to be honest, I don't
Okay.
know.
I'm just,
I wanna say
I can get that for you pretty quick.
I would be curious just to know what,
It's about
Is it 12?
I believe so.
Doesn't that go back to the numbers
But
of
I don't wanna say.
inmates?
Well, and
Well, a schedule.
Yes and no, not really,
know.
because you always still
They
have,
aren't DOC.
but no, because you always still have one on the floor is the issue.
And we talked about this yesterday in negotiations or in the last day or so. That a year ago we were full in corrections. Right now, I mean, yeah, it's
So
been
we're-
up and down in
Yeah.
corrections.
So I'm assuming we're paying a lot of overtime and burning people out again.
Part of it is that people are going back to school, so that's why we've been losing people lately.
We had a number of part-time folks who were able to fill in for our full-time
Yeah.
vacancies, and those are the folks who are leaving. 13 is what our full-time roster is, what
Wow.
it should be.
just over 50%. That engineer, that was posted for almost a year, wasn't it?
It's been 2 years,
Disappointing.
2 years. It's engineering technician position. Yep.
You
And
couldn't
when-
find anywhere to live
When
or
you
what?
hired this one, or hoped to hire him, he was the only candidate you had? Or did you actually?
I think he was the only qualified, because they have been interviewing as any apps come in. They've been really open to training and, you know, anything like that, but I think he was the only one that really could come in and do the work.
Okay.
He
And
was, having a hard time selling his home from where he was, it sounded like, so that was the issue.
How about our heavy equipment operator position? That's been kind of a revolving door too.
Yes, so knock on wood, we are currently full. I'm always a little hesitant to say, but yes, we are currently full.
Good.
So I had, the Water Patrol came to our Lake Association meeting and Deputy Swisher came with. And it was fun to meet those three. They're young people. 2 of them are going into law enforcement. And that was really encouraging to see. I think that gives them a little taste of, not a full taste by any stretch of the imagination, but it gives them a taste and you could tell they felt good about themselves. As they came and they didn't really like public speaking, so they didn't say too much. They let Sam handle that. But it was just encouraging to see that they get a taste of it and it pushes them farther on to maybe become a peace officer. So,
Talking with the sheriff, kind of big picture, statewide, there still are more vacancies than there are people in the training academies. And so until that flips, that's gonna continue, we're gonna continue to have a problem.
It's a nationwide
Yeah,
issue
exactly.
too. It's,
yeah.
It's not just Minnesota, but,
Nope.
you know, obviously what happens in Minnesota affects us most, so.
yeah.
Okay.
So just an update for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mika.
Thanks, Mikhail.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Yep.
All right. It's nice to hear the toxic environment of the county attorney's office was able to fill a role.
Absolutely, it's thrilling.
Made presence by Oberg's comments. We'll move on to Andrew.
Yes, I have just a couple of things for you, and then I have a little bit of a bigger presentation for you. So first off, as a reminder, we have our budget work session next week. So that'll be a bit of a longer meeting, but be prepared for that. And then we have our employee picnic scheduled on September 10th. We're scheduling from 11:30 to 1:30. We'll hope you all can be there to help us flip burgers and serve and have some fun. So the presentation that I have to share with you is a set of slides. This is not all of the slides, but a portion of the slides that I saw at the Administrators Association conference that I went to back in July. It's about, you know, big picture macroeconomic issues that are going on in the state of Minnesota and kind of nationally as well. This was presented by the Regional Outreach Director for the the Federal Reserve Bank of Minneapolis. What his job is to go out and talk with business groups and community groups to find out what's going on in the economy in their areas. What are their concerns? What are they seeing as far as trends? And then that helps to fill in the gaps of the data that's collected by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the Bureau of Economic Analysis, that the Federal Reserve then uses to help set rates. So Ron Wirtz was his name. His direct boss sits on the Board of Governors for the Federal Reserve, the group who sets interest rates. So They have a disclaimer that this is really not their views. I also want to point out my disclaimer, this isn't mine either. So these slides I took directly from them. I made no real changes, except I took some out. So kind of big picture view, looking at gross domestic product, what we've seen is that, when you look at over the course of the past 4 years, GDP has continued to grow. In Minnesota, what we've seen is that it's grown at a slower pace than the nation as a whole, but at a faster pace than the lesser state to our east. And then we'll talk a little bit more about future GDP. So where is that growth occurring? In Minnesota, what we're seeing is primarily in the utilities, retail, trade, and construction sectors is where you're seeing the biggest growth in GDP, but there has been loss primarily in the agriculture, forestry, fishing, and hunting, arts, entertainment, and recreation. He noted that the energy demand is increasing, consumers are still shopping, and on this last year, we had a really bad winter for winter tourism. So that's a reason we saw a loss there, and commodity prices are down, as well as the flooding, which was impacting ag.
So do they tell you how much, are these, a lot of these jobs government jobs, construction, or do they? No?
This is the full
thing?
the full economy. Yep.
Okay.
So primarily private sector.
Okay.
So when we look at retail sales, as he said, the recovery continues to be consumer-led, and these figures are not adjusted for inflation, but you still see a year-over-year growth. So the red line is 2024 compared to other years. It's generally above, other than in this spike in March, April of 2021. When we look at construction, this is all construction value across the state of Minnesota, and there's obviously seasonal trends that occur, right? Over the summer, that there's just more construction that occurs than over the winter, and the data suggests there continues to be some rebound, but what they have found is that as they talk with people who are involved in the construction industry, that there seems to be fewer projects that are out for bid. So when we look at new housing permits, there is a dip that has occurred from kind of a height in 2021, has dropped single family and multifamily, and this is likely driven by interest rates. We have seen locally here that our building permits continue to be very strong. We don't get a ton of new houses every year. We're not, obviously, as you know, we're not doing major subdivisions, but the number of new houses, the number of remodel permits, all of those sorts of things, we continue to see be at about the same pace as what they were pre-recession. So.
Andrew,
Yep.
that one surprises me a little bit, because as you drive around, you see more and more multi-units going up all
Yes.
over.
And what through Minnesota, across the state, 2023, there was more multifamily permits that were issued than in 2024. Now, where those are across the state, I don't know. We may be seeing things in our general region that is picked up, but in other parts of the states it's dropped down. I can't say.
That's a relatively short time frame. You're looking at 13 years on that.
Yeah.
So you look at the increase, Paul, to your point.
Yep.
It's basically in the last 4 or 5 years
Yeah.
that you've seen that
A spike.
But we also have to note that the reason why it was down here is in 2010, we're still dealing with Great Recession.
Yes.
Exactly. So as we look at closed home sales, as expected, because of interest rates, that has slowed. In 2024, we're above 2023, but below 22 and 21. There continues to be low inventory for homes, as you hop on Zillow and you can see how few homes are for sale. And so how much of that is because of interest rates being high, borrowing costs being high? How much of that is people wary of putting their house up for sale, not knowing where they're gonna go? So that inventory continues to be an issue. This is through survey of general businesses across Minnesota. What are the areas where they have the greatest challenges to their operations and productivity? The two highest that were identified in 2024 are similar to what they saw in 23 and 22, in 23, is, price increase for inputs and high interest rates are the two biggest concerns, and then labor availability after that. But you see with the labor availability, that continues to drop. But government taxes and regulations continues to be a growing concern. So challenges looking at inflation. This shows consumer price index versus personal consumption expenditure indexes. So the difference, because I learned this and I had to look it up again yesterday to remember, the difference between CPI and PCE. CPI is a fixed basket of goods that doesn't change. So they picked a basket of goods and then you can compare that over time. PCE also includes items that are paid for on consumers' behalf. So for example, health insurance. I went to the doctor, my health insurance pays for that. I don't pay for that directly. PCE captures that, CPI does not. What CPI does not capture is changes in consumer behavior. So if I go to the grocery store and Honeycrisp apples are too expensive now, so I decide I'm gonna buy oranges instead, that does not get captured in that. PCE does a little bit better job of capturing.
Have you been shopping? Because oranges are $8.99 a bag.
Wow.
Stick with the apples.
All I know is there were oranges in my house.
Find a
Like to
neighbor's
shoot a
apple
hole in
tree.
his whole theory.
You can grow an apple tree in Minnesota.
Yeah,
That is true.
find a neighbor that's got an apple.
You could apparently also grow a plum tree based on the plums that came into our office.
And peaches.
And peaches.
No.
So the PC core strips out food and energy prices to make it a little bit more stable. But what we see here largely is that all of them spiked in middle of 2022 and have been steadily moving down since then. PCE is the indicator that the Fed really takes a look at when they're making their decisions on rate increases or rate reductions. So where is that inflation occurring? Durable goods continues to be high. Durable goods are things like your microwaves and your fridges and things that are gonna last for a long time. But even though it's up higher, it is flattening. Non-durable goods is the same, and services is, he says moderate but persistent. So looking at kind of employment issues. So this is showing job growth over the past 5 years. Pre-pandemic, job growth was pretty flat. Then we had the drop in March and April of 2020, and it's been slowly coming back up. Minnesota and Wisconsin continue to see growth, but is at a flatter rate than nationally. And then in June of 24, there was actually a little downtick in Minnesota. And as we saw at the end of last month or early this month, the job growth that occurred in July nationally was at a lower pace than what it had been the past couple of months. So that number seems to be flattening out. The, what are the kind of the factors in the Minnesota job market? Job openings, there continues to be high demand, but that has softened over the past 6 months, year or so. Hires continue to be stable. Voluntary quits are higher than pre-pandemic, but seem to be a little stable, maybe easing. And then layoffs are volatile. And overall, the market is softening, but there's still plenty of jobs. So as we look at some of the areas that we have challenges, one of the issues is that there are still a lot of jobs that are available and more than what people are looking for. So this lack of labor supply is missed economic growth. That's kind of the big picture of what the Fed looks at. And we'll talk about what that means in just a second. Why is labor growth important? So there's two ways really that you can grow a business and then ultimately the state or national economy, and that you can increase productivity or, this is just increased productivity right now. What historically we see spikes of productivity after recessions. I can't say why that is. I have a couple theories of why, but I can't say why. So the thought is, okay, are we gonna see a boost of productivity right now? History suggests we're probably not. So the other way that you can grow is by increasing the number of workers, and that's either a natural increase, so you have more future workers, migration from other places, or convince more people in a given place to work and work more. So, looking at the labor force, the growth has slowed dramatically since 2000. Minnesota, we're higher than Wisconsin, but a little bit lower than nationally. So why is that? Slowing population growth, lower labor force participation. As we look at the population growth index I thought this was really interesting. In 2010 to 2020, we were averaging 30 to 40,000 new people in our population annually in Minnesota. 2020 to 2023, it was 27,000 total. So reason for that is declining fertility. This is a small graph on here, but the births per woman has gone down. The teal on here is the 1960, yellow is 1990, and the blue is 2020. And then lower net migration. So population grew, obviously, in that 2010 to 2020. This is the average annual. And then our average annual of 2020 to 2023, we're at like 8,000 or so, 9,000. So the natural increase of that, there's a natural increase, but then there's also this net migration. So we actually had a larger natural increase, but we had negative net migration. So how is that natural increase happening? Frankly, we have more births than deaths. We have more deaths now than we did in that 2010 to 2020 period, but our births continue to be higher than what the deaths are. Our domestic migration, so those are folks who live in Minnesota and then decide to go live in Arizona or Wisconsin or South Dakota, has been negative, but has been tempered by international migration, so immigration.
I'd be surprised if many people go to Wisconsin.
That's it.
Anybody who
The
would.
incentive would be.
Well, there's no jobs there as we saw, so
You'd have to wear green every day.
Grab the cheese and
it's
come
not,
back.
it's
That's
not
it.
every day.
Yeah.
Okay, so this was also really interesting. So labor force participation rates. So this has been one of the big questions that I've had of, well, if there's so many more jobs that are available out there, where are the people working, right? We seem to be fully employed for the most part pre-pandemic. Why aren't we fully employed now? So as we look, so this breaks it into three different groups: your 25 to 54-year-olds, 55 to 64, and then your young workers, 15 to 24. In June of 2019, the labor force participation rate of 25 to 54s was 82.2%. In June of 2024, it's 83.7, so about 1.5% up. 55 to 64, we're at 65.4 in 2019 and 65.6 in 2024, so about even. And 15 to 24s, we're at 56.2 compared to 56, so about even but slightly below. So the big change is that our folks who are over 65 are working less. In 2019, June of 2019, we're at 24.5%. In June of 2024, we're at 23.6, so about a full percent less. So that's the change in the labor. So there are other factors that are affecting economic growth. Growing entrepreneurship and gig work makes more bosses and fewer workers for hire. So as people are out there driving for Uber or Grubhub or something like that, they're doing that work rather than working in a traditional business. Unavailable or expensive childcare, which is an issue we've talked a lot about. And then, the notion that no one wants to work. So talking about government assistance. And what they identified was that enrollment in most programs is flattered down over the last decade. And our data, I would be interested to compare this to Meeker County data as well. But what they've found across the state is MinFIP is down 25, almost 40%. The one that's up, housing support, and then medical assistance is up significantly. As those of you who are on the Prime West board know.
But that doesn't make sense because our budget keeps growing in those services, so is
Yeah.
it just because of the housing?
Well, also, I know that locally, where a lot of our growth occurs is elderly individuals. And so,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I also heard today or yesterday about all the people my age, young my age, Danny,
Season.
having to come back
Going
into
on.
the work world because they can't afford groceries. So that kind of
It-
goes
it-
against what it says here too.
It has not played out in the data yet.
Okay.
Now, this was
So
from
this
June
is
of
from-
twenty twenty-four, so it's
So it's gonna look
2 months old.
different,
It may
yeah.
look different in the future. Yep. Okay. Tight labor supply, a word about immigration. Economic growth requires increase in productivity. So what about immigration? This shows persons obtaining lawful permanent resident status, so green cards from 1820 to 2022. It's, what I thought was interesting was here in 1991 was the peak, with 1.8 million individuals. This is nationally. There was a dip here in 1999 of 644,000, and then in 2022 we were at 1 million. In Minnesota, persons obtaining lawful permanent resident status has dropped over the past 6 years, 7 years. It has started to tick back up after 2021. Obviously, there's no data for 23 or 24 here. But there's kind of two categories: new arrivals and people who are already here who are gaining that permanent status. They may have been here on a temporary status, and now they're here on a permanent status. Temporary work visas, those programs are ultimately overall growing. We saw a dip in temporary work visas in 2019, 2020, and then it has moved back upwards. So kind of the idea they were trying to convey here is, maybe we may be seeing fewer people being here permanently, but we are having more people come in and work temporarily. And this might be people coming in and doing farm work or doing processing at our animal processing plants in Minnesota. So this is nationally, though, I believe. This is not Minnesota.
I know there was difficulties during COVID.
Yep.
I know some ag people that
Exactly.
employ, they come on visas from South Africa, I think is a common one. And
Yeah.
they had some problems there for a couple of years.
Yeah. Looking at forecasts, so this is intended to talk about how private forecasts are consistently wrong. The dotted line here is what was expected. So these are from blue chip companies. I don't recall how many companies it was, but these are your big Fortune 500 companies who have their own economists on staff to help them make the determinations of when do we make investment, where do we make investment. And generally what they were saying is that we expect a drop in GDP, so a recession in January of 2023. The reality is that rather than seeing that recession, we actually saw growth in GDP. So it's kind of just the exact opposite of what they're anticipating. Their current forecast is actually a little bit higher than what others are saying. So there's variation in those forecasts as well. So the top 10 were showing growth around 2.5%. The bottom showing growth closer down to 1% up to 1.5%. This is between second quarter of 24 through fourth quarter of 25. But the consensus is that it's somewhere in between there. And then as they look at interest rates, again, dotted lines are intended to be what the forecast was. The black is federal funds, home mortgage, and then prime interest rate. And what we see there is that those rates have continued to be up above what was expected as far as interest rates. And that's because the Fed has held up rates out of concerns about inflationary costs. The forecast, though, for CPI and PCE is that it will continue to go down and flatten out around, that 2% or just above that 2% target, which is what the Fed is looking for. So that is the information that I have.
Andrew, if you recall, the first year I was a commissioner, we went to one of the AMC events and they had the state demographer.
Yep.
And many of the things you just showed us about workforce
Yep.
and population, I bet if we pulled those slides, they were pretty spot on.
Yeah, and I recall specifically from that presentation that kind of the crisis that we were facing and continue to face was going to occur.
Yeah.
It was exacerbated and pushed faster because of the pandemic, but we already were gonna have fewer workers than jobs because that was the way the demographics of the state were moving.
Why did they pick Wisconsin as their comparable?
because of the way that the Federal Reserve Bank is broken up into their different districts. And so he gave an answer at that time. I don't remember exactly what it was, but, you know, Wisconsin's obviously a neighboring state and we have similar economies, and so that's part of the reason why.
Okay.
Okay. That concludes my report.
right.
Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you, Andrew. Moving on, Commissioner Committee updates.
Well, I was gone on a little vacation, so I didn't have much, but I did I remoted into a hospital finance meeting, and also we had a hospital board meeting yesterday. I'm not gonna get into a lot of detail. I'd like Mary Ellen to do most of that, I guess, but as we talked about earlier, Michelle Bacala is gonna be our new board member. We also have some, we're gonna be leasing a surgical robot and a U-arm radiographic unit, so that we can do when the new ortho people, they're gonna be able to do complete shoulders, and we're gonna have a spine doctor. And one of our ortho people decided they're moving, that was working for St. Cloud, so they're getting another one lined up. So it may be out, I think the spine doctors are gonna start right away, and the sports injury might be down the line a little, but they presented some really nice charts on, you know, conservatively, how much more revenue this is gonna bring in. And they kind of judged it by, we get a lot of people in our therapy who have to go elsewhere to have, say, a complete shoulder, but then come here for our therapy, so they know that if we can do it here. So, and we have some immediate repairs coming up at the hospital that have to be done. There's some maintenance that probably should have been done over the years, so we voted on that. That would be around, I think, $2 to $3 million by the time we're done. And then we had a further discussion about our master facility plan, and it's really at an infant stage right now, so I'm not gonna get into it. But it was a longer meeting. We got a new director of HR. Her name is Sarah Christensen. Janae Olson was hired for foundation and marketing. Angie Detail was hired as our CNO. And Tyler, I can't pronounce his last name, Olseth, is gonna be our new CFO. So Mary Ellen filled all those. In fact, she called me a couple weeks ago and said, this has been one of the nicest days of my career because we filled all 4 positions. So things are staying positive. There's a lot of good changes coming, and so stay tuned. And other than that, I was gone, so I didn't have anything else.
Thanks, Beth. Shirley?
And I'll go next, okay? Yes, it was a quiet week for me as well. It was quite nice. We were supposed to have had our 3-county public health meeting on the 8th, but that has been rescheduled now to the 29th, and that'll be in Glencoe. And then we're going to have our work session, and that will be at 8:30 on the 27th. Am I correct with that? And we're going to talk about the budget. And I'm happy to say that that is my report.
All right.
Wow, you were on
Nice,
vacation. too,
record
weren't you?
time.
That's great.
All
You're
right.
gonna write that down. on the calendar.
Kudos to Julie. All right.
Okay, I had a PAC meeting in Granite Falls at Project Turnabout, and, which was just absolutely fascinating, because they had 2 of our drug task force people make a presentation. I'm not gonna use their names because these 2 gentlemen work undercover, for a great deal of their time. And, Renville County had taken a fish house, borrowed a fish house from somebody, and they made it up like a young person's bedroom. Then after the meeting, we went out to tour it, and it's called Hidden in Plain Sight. And they had it all set up, so as we walked through, and this is just an example, there was a bottle of Mountain Dew sitting there. I said, okay, it's Mountain Dew. They picked it up, and it had been hinged underneath the label. Unscrewed it, top had been sealed off, so it showed like it was liquid, but there was drug paraphernalia on the bottom side of it.
Nothing here. Full disclosure.
Now we know.
They showed about cans, aerosol cans, how they had worked the bottom so that they could slide it out and keep their things in there. I mean, it was just fascinating. It really was. And then what I heard, the one officer was telling about the search warrant, that he had to execute on a Sunday. And he said, you cannot believe the filth that we walk into. And he said, we walk in and we find children. You know, and he said, we have to remove these children and separate them. And, you know, what the trauma is to these young people and what they go through. And, you know, he said, it's just horrific. So my next question was to both of them when we got outside. I said, how do you decompress? I mean, you gotta go home. You have families. How are you decompressing? And he said, we use each other a lot. Because otherwise we take this massive depression home with us and so forth. So the meeting ran a little longer than normal, but it was worth every minute of my time to see this and to hear it. I think one of the gentlemen that was there is a Meeker County deputy. He was one of them making the presentation. So, yeah, it hit home because we just don't realize how much of this really goes on and what goes on in these homes and what these children are going through. So, yeah, it was very, very good. Then, as Beth said, we had a hospital board meeting yesterday. I really don't have much to say there other than to go back to that housing thing. Because, and I'm just gonna use one of the individuals who wants to get moved here, looking for a home, and is struggling to find what he wants in this area, which is, you know, we don't wanna lose him and have him commuting into Meeker County. We want him staying in Meeker County, but, there again, the housing is probably gonna dictate where he lives, and it's gonna be sad if that's the case. So, yeah, Beth talked about this new machine. We have two of those, St. Cloud orthopedic people already signed. We're working on the third. This machine that Beth talked about is so precision that when they cut the bone in the shoulder, they make an absolute, you know, cut in the absolute perfect place. It's just amazing the technology that this will bring. And I think they estimated about a conservative estimate of 100 procedures per year.
And the cool thing about it is they came and looked at our surgery rooms, and we actually have room for all of this equipment. Because sometimes when they add it to an older, they were really thrilled about our surgery rooms. Sometimes they have to have more room, but we're there. And most of these new doctors that are specializing are training with robots and stuff. So if we don't
Yep.
have it, we're not gonna attract what we need, so.
Yeah, they're
It's-
coming
it's
out
a-
of, they're coming out of college.
They're
and
trained.
School, and they've used the finest equipment
So-
there is. So
So
by
I'm
us having
glad
some,
it's a positive step for sure.
by us having some state-of-the-art, it's a little bit easier to draw the new people here, so. But that's all I had.
All right.
Thanks, Paul. Steve?
Well, I cut out a little early last meeting, so I had like a little extra on my report, but for the most part, looking through everything, it's budget, union negotiations, budget, union negotiations. Did have Grove City Care. Grove City had their parade on Sunday. They had their
Windmill
towns-
days, huh?
Windmill days
Yeah.
over the weekend here. Beautiful weekend, so I think they did quite well here. Pulled a float in the parade for Grove City Care, and Linda Mickelson was their volunteer of the year, who happens also to be the board chair of Grove City Care, so. So Grove City Care, budget, you know, we're in the midst of, we'll have more detail on that in a work session next week. I think it's been a little bit, surgical, probably more this year than it has in the past couple, but we've kind of known that's coming, and we're trying to not hurt ourselves too far, looking into the future, 26, 27, that's where it starts to get, a little dicier, so. I had the canvas board on the 16th, went over election results with Barb, and Andrew was there, and a couple
Filling in
others.
for me, sorry.
No, that's all right
Thank
if
you.
you're traveling. The other thing I was gonna talk about a little bit, public safety, emergency services board, the regional emergency services board, our budget, is gonna be up a little bit there, but over, I think it was $2,900 this year, but over the past, I looked back, I think it was 10 years, it had been really, really flat, so we haven't had any significant moves there in quite some time. But we do have a little bit of a jump there this year. The other thing I was gonna talk about was, with the solar and the wind, me and Andrew are trying to, I wanna talk to the local co-ops here, and there's, to my understanding, there's about 6 regional co-ops that are affected a lot by the proposed XL Energy, the power line and the infrastructure that goes through that, and just kinda get a feel of what the impact these local or regional companies, the good, the bad, the ugly of the project, what we can maybe as a county help them out, our regional co-ops, and do some things there. We've been through budget and some of our conversations, we came up, we jokingly about putting solar panels on the landfill, on the closed portion of the landfill, so we're look into that a little bit. There's an email this morning from Greg. There's some challenges to it, but it's been done experimentally a little bit across the state in some areas. So just look at some opportunities where we can maybe help out the taxpayer a little bit locally and do some things there. But other than that, I will be up in Brainerd on Thursday and half of Friday for a strategic and budget session with AMC this week. And Grove City Trinity Lutheran Church has their barbecue tonight.
When is that tonight?
From 5 to 7:30, I believe, tonight, so.
Cool.
And those proceeds go to the fire and rescue department out there. So that's about all I have.
All right, thanks, Steve. I had like with us, Steve and Andrew, we finished up our budget, I think last Monday. And so we'll have a nice robust conversation coming next Tuesday about it. So, and then we had negotiations yesterday with a couple of the unions, and we have 2 more today, and things are progressing along cautiously optimistic, to put it